Do you use the Adobe profiles at the start of your image post-processing? And do you wonder if you're using the correct profile? In this short video, I'll explain the profile that I use and why I think that you may be using the wrong one, because I see a lot of videos that by default just switch to Adobe Landscape. And that's not the one that I've been using in more recent times for my post-processing. I'll explain which profile I use and why I suggest you switch to this technique as well, because it minimizes the amount of editing workflow required and, in my opinion, gives you a much better rendition of the colors for your image, which are much more true to life. So let's get started with Lightroom. I'll jump into the develop module, and as you can see, the profile by default is Adobe Color, which is the default that Adobe will assign out of the box. So what I'm going to do is create an initial virtual copy, and my first copy I'm going to change to Adobe Landscape, and this is a very common one in editing videos on YouTube. And I'm now going to create another virtual copy. Our second virtual copy. What I'm going to do is, rather than use the drop down menu here, I'm going to actually select the four little boxes, which is the profile browser. So let's go into the profile browser. You can see our default ones here, the Adobe Raw. Let's close that down. What I'm going to go into is camera matching. This is the best representation I've found so far for all things color profile related when processing the raw images straight out of your camera. What I'm going to select here is Landscape. We can also click on this little star to add it to your favorites at this point in time. So what I'll do now is let's go and we'll jump into the reference and compare the two. Please select our RA, our reference. And what we've got here on the active side is our copy 2. What I'm going to do is drag copy 1 onto the left hand side. I'm hoping that this is going to come out really well in YouTube for you, but what you'll notice is subtle differences. When I shot this, the contrast was quite high because of the sun coming in from the top left hand corner. The Adobe Landscape one has tended to flatten the image a little bit. You'll notice the grays are a little bit picked out, the greens aren't quite as bright. But on the right hand side, our active one with our camera matching, what we've got a little bit more darkness in the dark areas, but our colors are much more reminiscent of actually what the scene really looked like in real life. So I'm going to open up my virtual copy 2, which has my camera landscape format, and I'm really quickly going to do some edits on this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy these develop settings. So if I go to develop settings, copy, I'm going to copy everything except for the treatment and the profile. So let's copy those from that virtual copy 2, and I'm going to paste these onto our virtual copy. I'm going to make sure I've got that one selected. Let's copy those onto our virtual copy 1. Now let's switch back to our reference image. And I'm going to drag virtual copy 1 and virtual copy 2 onto those images. And what you can see is the immediate difference. I think the colors in the right hand side are much better. I feel like there's more editing required when just using the out of the box landscape. I feel that the camera landscape profile has really captured the colors in the grass and the detail, and it really has captured the density and the texture in the rocks much better. It's not flattened out the image as much as the Adobe Landscape one. One of the options that you have is to go to Edit Preferences to create a default setting for your Adobe Raw profiles. So the default out of the box is Adobe Default, as you would potentially expect. Set this to camera settings, overrides for specific cameras. Your camera list should come up. These are all the cameras I've used to do imports into Lightroom over the years, and then switch that to camera settings as well. And that's all you need to do for the actual overall global criteria. One of the things to consider is when you're importing to apply the camera settings directly as well. So I've opened up the import screen here, and what you can notice is that the develop settings applied during import on the right hand side are set to none by default out of the box. So what you can do is you can select the Develop Settings drop-down box, go to Defaults and then go to Camera Settings. And that's pretty much all you need to do. We've set it already in the global parameters, and now when importing, it'll apply that during the actual import. And this is the reasons that I really primarily use the camera landscape profile rather than the default landscape profile from Adobe. It really does enrich the contrast and give a better representation of the colours to the actual scene that was captured at that time, because it's essentially profiling the raw data straight out of the camera much more accurately. Thank you very much for your time in watching this video. It's been very much appreciated. I hope that this has proven useful. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support is so massively appreciated. And until next time, I will see you anon. Thank you very much.